So we're starting off today with a 2004 Ford F250 with a 6.0. We have an EGR performance code, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull the valve out. When it came in, it was smoking really bad, ran really rough. So my suspicion is the valve is stuck, or it has something stuck in it. So we're gonna go ahead and pull it. There's two 8s right here. I'm gonna hit the camera 6 times. There's 1 8. Okay, set that up there. Put another. There are only two 8mm on this valve. And then what I usually do, I like to turn them like this. And then I have my pick. I get under the corner. Try to at least. I don't want to break the connector for that fake TPS. Give a little wiggle jiggle. There we go. Pop goes the weasel. But the problem is, you see the soot coming out of the corner? Pretty sure it breached itself internally. Yeah, and there's some crap in there. It's not hung open though. But when the soot comes out of the corner right here, as long as this gasket is in place and it looks, you can see where the gasket was sealed right there. Looks fine. It was coming out of the inside of the valve, so the seal on the stem of the valve was bad. So that soot's inside the valve and it damaged it. So we're gonna have to go ahead and replace this valve to fix it properly. So let me see if we can get the authorization to do that, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so I got the authorization to replace it. So we're gonna go ahead and clean this thing up. So I like to try to get it nice and clean, so we make sure it's not leaking, the new one. These new valves are kind of garbage. We actually buy them from Ford, but I wish I could say they work great every time, but not really, you know. Very hit and miss. But mostly the Ford parts, you know, the remanufacturers especially, have a lot of alternator failure, a lot of FICM failure from them. It kind of sucks, but I mean, they're the best alternator you can probably get. The factory Ford one is the best one besides going full aftermarket, you know. I mean, you're gonna go to Napa, those ones. I've replaced so many of those Napa alternators. We tried them before. They don't work. The only other brand that I like that can be considered kind of factory or aftermarket is Denso. Their stuff's pretty good. I've noticed a slight decrease in quality over the last few years, but okay. Especially the radiators. The radiators kind of gotten crappier. It sucked. Okay. Try to wiggle it, grease it up really good, and pop it like it's hot. And we're gonna just line it up. We'll go ahead and get this bolt in. A little snug. Hopefully this valve's good. I've had some of them when they get hot, they get stuck. It just sucks. The parts nowadays. I've tried using other stuff. Other stuff does not work. Just garbage. Okay, so that's all done. Got the 2 8s tight. I'm gonna go ahead and fire it up, let it run, then we'll run some tests. It's gotta warm up before we can get the EGR to really test. So now we're driving the 6.0. I got in it a little bit just to make sure it's good so far. It seems to run pretty good. When it came in, it was smoking like a freight train, had no power. So something was up with that valve. But, yeah. And what's nice about these early ones, this is considered an 03, I think. Not 03, it's considered an early because it has the early style engine. What I mean by that is the turbocharger intake and oil rails are different, the oil pump's different, but they're the tuning in them is a lot more peppy, it seems. They seem to have more power. And to be more responsive too than the later trucks, which is pretty nice. But these trucks do suffer from, you know, obviously a lot of failures. These ones are more so common to fail with the high pressure oil pumps because they're an aluminum housing, or I'm not sure if it's aluminum. It's some type of soft material. You know, I'd assume it's aluminum. The newer ones, like the 04-ish and up, depending on where you're at, they have a cast iron pump, which are supposedly a lot more reliable, and they really are. You know, the only thing that I see on those is the snap to connect fittings pop off and blow apart, but you know, they have an updated fitting for those. It makes it all nice and good. These ones, the snap to connect fitting, this has a tube, it's called discharge tube. They blow the O-ring out too. I've seen it happen before. But yeah, and I'm not very fond of these trucks. I could never own one just because of all the amount of issues they have, and in my personal professional opinion, no matter how much money you put in this truck, it'll never be perfect. And that goes to say with every truck, but I really don't, you know, even at my cost, spend, you know, $15,000 on this engine to make it, you know, as reliable as another pickup truck, and, you know, still have other problems down the road. It's just not my preference. You know, these things the bottom ends are extremely strong. You know, there's nothing really wrong with that. It's more so, you know, cam and lifter failure takes out the cam. You have high pressure oil problems, injector problems, turbo. You know, the turbo's kind of iffy. You know, as long as you don't do short drives, they do rust up, depending on how badly pitted they are. I usually just replace the turbocharger because they're not that much more expensive than a unison ring, and it just gives the customer more value because they're not going to be back in a year and a half for a rusted unison ring again. When you put a turbo on it, they'll at least get another, you know, 5-10 years out of it before it rusts again, depending on how they drive it. If they just do short distance and let it sit like I do on my personal vehicle, then it'll rot. But, you know, they have that FICM alternator, you know, water pump, and, you know, every other truck's the same way too. They have, like the Chevys, you know, water pump failure is pretty common, and those ones are some of the most expensive water pumps to replace on the, you know, the pickup truck side of things. But I still, I don't know. But you can see she's runs good actually. It's got to be tuned. It has a little bit more pep in its step, but it's a good running truck. I don't know about the headliner though. I think something got loose up there. Maybe a chupacabra got inside the truck and started tearing the headliner to shreds. It does have a little groan. Yeah, it's hard to say what the groan is. Let me turn down the air conditioning. Yeah, it runs really good. I know the customer said something about a groan. These early ones seem to, the turbochargers seem to make a little bit more noise than normal. I'm not too sure why. I've had a few of them that just groan, and you know, it's not necessarily in the turbocharger. I think it's just something with the noise. It's like the, I don't know if you've ever experienced like the LML Duramax, the 11 to 16 or 17, whatever it is. They have a really bad resonance, and you know, I've never had anyone bring it in for that noise, but every time I drive one, you can tell it has some weird resonance. It sounds like something's not loose, but it sounds like something's kind of leaking, especially on the passenger side. It's just nature of the beast, you know. I'm not sure. It's just something that's normal with those trucks, then the way they engineered them. They obviously didn't take the time on those trucks to figure out the noise dampening like they should have. That has got to be, those Chevys or GMCs, they have to be one of the, that resonance is probably the only, I think it's the only vehicle with that kind of crazy resonance that's familiar, you know, besides these. I mean, these ones really aren't that bad. I see this every once in a great while. It's not like the Chevys. You get in almost every one of those and you get in it and you can hear the resonance really loud. But when I get back to the shop, we'll do a can engine running test, make sure it passes that. We'll do, just for giggles, we'll do a can engine off test. I'm not too sure if that tests the valve, but I know there's no way for it to, you know, test it dynamically while it's running. The can engine running test does. But I take the can engine running test with a grain of salt just because I've had it through erroneous codes before. And you end up trying to chase your tail, and, you know, it's not really fun. But for the most part, it's pretty good. Certain vehicles, like certain Fords, will throw certain codes. Like the 7.3 will throw an exhaust back pressure valve code. I have no idea why. That's just what it does. Only on the can engine running test. But when I return, we'll run those tests and see what happens. So now we're going to check it for codes. Let me set this up right here. Make life a little easier. So let's see if we have any codes. Price P1000. Yep. Okay, that's perfect. So now the engine's warmed up because I just went and drove it. I'm going to go ahead and shut the air conditioning off so we can do a can engine running test. We're going to do an on-demand. The other one is a glow plug test. We don't care about the glow plugs. So you got to wait. You got to push and release the brake pedal. Turn the steering wheel. Cycle the overdrive. All the cruise buttons. And then four-wheel drive. And then depress the clutch if present. It's an automatic, so no clutch for us. Let's see. It's crazy. What do you think? Yeah, that's annoying. Usually when it takes a while, that's a good sign. Usually means there's no codes. Just from my experience. Cruise off, parking brake. I didn't set the parking brake, and I must not put the cruise, but we don't have no EGR code, so I'm calling that one done. I'm not going to do a can engine off test. There's no reason to. But, yep, see you guys on the next one.